Last Call by KB HURST. Bobby sat in her chair, listening to the stranger tell her all about his fears and regrets, as she had hundreds of times. In the last few years, at Caring is Sharing, the over-the-phone counseling company that she'd worked for. Her boss, Mr. Mills, paced back and forth as if something was distressing him greatly. She finally relieved herself from the phone call so she could see what the matter was. Mr. Mills? Is everything all right? No. He smiled a twisted grin. It's not all right, Bobby. They couldn't stop it. The government's plans failed. We're set to die by that asteroid at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Bobby clutched her necklace. His tears began to fall from her tiny face. Her short, dark pixie cut remained entirely in contrast atop her now red and screwed-up face. Her eyes wouldn't leave Mr. Mills. What now? Bobby asked. Go home, call your mother, pet your cat. I don't really give a fuck. Bobby had never seen the kind and calm Mr. Mills so rattled in all of her life. At 25, she had not learned much about life except for 4 years of schooling and counseling others off the ledge of life. She had lived minimal experience outside of the call center at Caring is Sharing. Bobby looked out the window, down into the streets. People were running in every direction. She saw a man jump out of the second-story window across from theirs to his death down below. Into the street. Her eyes were seeing too much, and she could barely process it. Bobby wiped her eyes and walked over to the phone and picked it up, dialing the nursing home her mother had been in for the last 2 years. A kind woman answered the phone. Hidden Oak Nursing Facility. This is Jane. How can I assist you? Bobby wondered if Jane had not yet learned that the world was soon ending. She spoke very softly into the phone and did not realize the tone that came from her lips. My name is Bobby Williams. I'm calling to speak to Helen Williams, my mother. Oh, Mrs. Williams, your, mother is, she's in a coma. I'm so sorry. We were planning to call you, but she stopped, and Bobby knew then why they hadn't called her. The world was ending in fire and chaos in less than 6 hours. Can you tell her that I love her anyway, for me? Very well, miss, the young woman said as she began sobbing over the phone. Bobby hung up, and soon she just stood in a daze, unsure of what she was going to do. She thought for a moment about her mother being in a coma. She had been ill for so long. She deserved to die peacefully. Bobby comforted herself by the realization that if her ailing mother was in a coma, then she wouldn't feel the blast from the fireball headed for their planet. Bobby wondered for a small second if it would hurt. Would it be so fast that she wouldn't feel anything? She turned all thoughts to the children, the animals, and then she started to cry. Bobby grabbed her coat and went towards the door to walk out when she heard it. What sound was coming from her desk chair? How could something so normal put her at ease for that second? It was the ringing of her telephone. Something heard 1,000 times. Something that had, on many occasions, made her wish she had chosen a different path in life. It had so many times given her satisfaction that, in fact, she was a good human being for all of her listening and hard work. Bobby wondered for a split second, how many people had she helped? The phone rang again, and she had no idea why, but she sat down, put her headset on, and answered the call. Hello, this is Caring is Sharing. My name is Bobby, and how may I extend my hand today? She had said it 1,000 times. It was corny and it was stupid, but it seemed to be something that Mr. Mills felt worked. You answered. Yes. Oh, said the voice. My name is Bobby. Would you like me to extend my hand to you today? Perhaps I can listen to you while you tell me what's going on. Her voice was still shaking, but she reminded herself to focus on the job at hand. You saw the news. Yes, Bobby responded robotically. I have no one left in my life to care for or about me. And it's the end of the world, the man's voice said over the phone. Thank you for answering, but why did you answer? He asked, unsure as to why this other human being was there, just when he didn't expect any human being to even bother. I don't have anyone either. The man sighed. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. May I ask your name? Jake. Well, Jake, it looks like we have each other right now. Would you like to be my end of the world date? Jake laughed, making Bobby feel better for a second. Jake had a calmness to his voice that helped put her at ease, and she would try to put him at ease in return. Splendid idea, Jake responded. So tell me about yourself, Bobby said gently into the phone, as she had been trained to do 1,000 times. I'm a widower. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, it was my fault. Oh, no, don't say that. I mean, we all feel that way when something tragic happens, but it doesn't mean that it's true. Well, maybe. So, tell me a little about you. Jake switched subjects quickly. A 25 UCLA graduate with a major in psychology. I live alone, no pets, but I do love plants, and I have a lot of those. Do you have a boyfriend? Girlfriend? Jake asked. Neither, Bobby chuckled. And I think that's wise. You know, when you're not in a relationship, there's less pressure to be someone that isn't who you really are all the time. Is that what you feel like being in a relationship is like? Bobby asked. Yes, I was never given complete freedom in my marriage to Sienna, my wife. That was her name. It's a beautiful name, Bobby said, as empathetically as her voice would let her sound. She hated it. Jake laughed. Why? She never felt she was pretty enough to have a name like Sienna. Oh, well, I'm sure she was beautiful. Or at least you must have thought she was beautiful to marry her. I wonder what that may have been like for me, you know? She was stunning in her own way. So, Bobby, you were never engaged to anyone? Not even once? I'm afraid not. How come? I am not good at dating anyone. I don't know, I just always feel awkward. And I don't know. Bobby laughed a little shyly. She tried to maintain control of the call as she had done hundreds of times. Oh, I doubt that. Why do you get shy? Is it because you think someone won't like you if you act a certain way? No, just sometimes I feel like I don't matter. You do counseling for a living. That has to matter to someone. It matters to me because you took my phone call, and you didn't have to do that. Um, Maybe I'm afraid to get really close to anyone. I had one terrible relationship in my life, and it was what led me to do this job. May I ask what happened? Uh, my ex-boyfriend killed himself when we were in high school. It was a week before prom. I didn't even know he was depressed, but I was given signs of it looking back. What kind of signs? I'm curious as to what sort of things one must be showing to the world before something like that happens. He slept all day sometimes. He'd get really excited and manic about stuff, and then, he'd sulk for days afterwards. He drew skeletons and made jokes about himself dying all the time. I mean, it's one thing to show artistic intent, but he was rather obsessed and felt like he had no one to talk to. Let's change the subject. Bobby took a deep breath. It had been a long time since she had thought about her ex, Marty. She tried not to think about it, but given there was little hope now at surviving, she didn't really care. Okay, so tell me the craziest thing you've ever done. This'll be a fun one. You first, Buddy quipped back with a shy smirk that Jake could hear in her voice over the phone. I got arrested for the first time in my life at 36. Arrested? Oh, well, that's definitely going to be hard to beat. The craziest thing I ever did was I stole wine from the grocery store. On a dare. Can you tell me the story about that? Oh no, you have to tell me yours first. Oh no, I promise it isn't that interesting. Sadder than anything. And I don't feel ready to talk about that with you just yet. Okay, fine. Well, I was at a frat party in college when my best friend and I were shopping. We were both already drunk, and we realized that we had overextended our budget on alcohol. So here I was at the store with a long dress on, and my stupid ass shoved a wine jug in front and pretended to be pregnant. I walked out of the store, got into my friend's car, convinced I was going to be arrested. It was foolish looking back, but I guess it's kind of funny now. And I wouldn't have even done it had my best friend not told me that if I didn't do it, she was going to make me streak down the street naked. And she was the type of friend who would have done that. I once had sex in a public restroom. Bobby began laughing hysterically. What? Yeah, speaking of college, that's the second craziest thing I ever did. This girl I was with at the time thought it would be sexy if we got it on in the bathroom at this coffee shop we used to go to. Well, I guess we were so loud that when we walked out, the entire place started to clap. She was mortified, so we laughed, obviously. I wanted to stay because I thought we'd get free food or something out of it, but she never spoke to me again after that, and it was even her idea, so I don't even understand. Bobby sat, looking. When she looked up at the clock in the office, it was 3 a.m. There were 4 hours left on Earth. And she was talking to a complete stranger. This is not how she pictured her last hours on Earth. She had always imagined dying in a hospital bed, surrounded by loved ones. Maybe her children, her grandchildren. There was a loud boom from the other end of the phone. Jake? There was no sound coming from the end of the phone. Jake? Hello? Are you there? Bobby could hear the sound of someone crying outside of her building window. She dared not look at the horrors just outside of her office building in the city that never seemed to rest. Even now, it was complete and utter devastation. She stood to look out the window, and she could see a group of men. They were just accosting a woman outside, and then an explosion. The men scattered, but the woman was now dead. Bobby went towards the door of her office and locked it firmly. She could hear sirens, but she didn't know if it meant there were police offering aid or if someone was taking a last-minute joyride in a police car. Jake? Bobby asked again, hoping that her only offer of solace was still on the other end of the phone. I'm here. I'm sorry. I was moving into a safer place in the jail. Bobby was still watching the fires that had started outside of her window when she realized what Jake had said. She walked back to her desk and sat in her chair, holding her headset. Jail? She was perplexed as she felt deceived, although she didn't think that she had any right to feel that way. Jake was hiding something. She needed to know what. It didn't matter that in less than 4 hours they would all be dead. Bobby had to know what he was hiding. It was the only way she would be able to feel genuinely connected to Jake, and she needed that connection so she wouldn't feel all alone. I'm in the county jail. Manslaughter. His voice was lower, and he became quiet. Is that what you didn't want to talk about? Yes. I was afraid you wouldn't want to talk to me anymore. Uh, what did you do? I killed my wife. Bobby made an audible gasp. Why? I don't have an answer for that. I just did it. Bobby was running over scenarios in her mind as she listened to him. Tell me what happened. Sometimes if you talk about what happened, it's therapeutic. I was drunk for the 100th time in our marriage. Sienna didn't like it when I drank. She said it made me cocky. I was a bit of an ass when I drank, I'll give her that. We were arguing over some guy I accused her of flirting with at the bar we were at. She refused to go home with me, so I, being the asshole of the hour that I was, decided I needed one more drink before I left the bar and drove my ass home. Instead of doing just that, drinking my last drink and going home, I decided to drag her kicking and screaming into my car. She kept trying to call someone to pick us up, but I said no. I forced her into my car like an idiot. Then I drove us home, going 75 miles per hour. The last thing I remember is a light coming at us, and then I woke up in a hospital bed. I killed her and another driver. A grandmother of 6 coming home from her late night shift at Taco Bell. Bobby had no words. Jake was crying now. She wanted to tell him everything was going to be all right, but she knew better. They were both going to die. Are you alone in jail? Yes. I was the only prisoner. They were going to transport me to the big prison first thing tomorrow. A jury gave me 25 to life yesterday. Where did all the guards go? They left me with the keys and told me to do what I wanted and ran out. I don't deserve to be out there anymore. Even with a few hours left on this planet, I'd give anything to tell my wife I'm sorry and that I love her. I'd give anything to tell the family of that grandmother that I never meant to hurt her. Bobby was crying now, too, unsure as what to say to Jake. They know those things, Jake. Your wife knows you love her. I don't think she'd care. Do you believe in an afterlife? No, but given what's happening tomorrow morning, I'm hopeful. Okay, I think deep down, you were never a bad person, Jake. What you did was bad, very bad, and yet you still have remorse. Is this in your training manual, too? No, I'm just going off instinct. Tell me something. If there were no asteroid, would you come to visit me if I asked? I don't know. Where are you now? He asked. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm in a little jail outside of Chicago. Bobby wished for a split second that she could see Jake in person, if only so she wouldn't be physically alone now at the end of the world. Oh, there's 3 hours left now. What would you like to talk about? Tell me, what would you like to talk about? There has to be something on your mind, Bobby asked. Anything? Yeah, like, what's your favorite sport? Basketball, Jake said. Okay. What's your favorite color? Blue. Mine too. What's your favorite sport? Ugh, I hate sports. Oh, come on, Jake said, laughing now. No, really, I hate them, Bobby said, laughing. I hated PE in school. I was tiny, and I could barely participate in any of the sports that we played in gym class. My best friend was a really tall basketball player, though. What was her name? Emily. She was terrific. Bobby was cut off by the electricity going out of the building. She sat for a moment in silence. The telephone system went out, and she realized that she found herself trying with all of her might to find Jake's number to trace. Bobby heard another explosion outside, and she noticed the crowds of people had moved out towards the beach. She could see in the distance military crafts flying over the sky as though they were flying up towards something. Maybe they were making one last attempt at destroying the asteroid before it got to Earth. The office was dark, and she searched around for her cellular phone to see if she could find the numbers on the main tracking computer. It was the only computer still connected to the large generator outside. So far, the crowds of people had not destroyed that. In the distance, she could see a bright green light streaking across the sky in slow motion. This is what would end her life? She looked back at the computer and see a number on the screen. Oh, please let this be Jake. Holy shit, Bobby? Jake, thank God. Our electricity is out here. It went out here too. I think that's happening everywhere. So far, at least we have cell service. It's getting closer. Bobby was looking at the clock, and from the time she had lost the call, another hour had passed. I know, Jake said. I can see it. See what? The asteroid. It hasn't hit, but I can see it streaking across the sky in the distance. What does it look like? Jake asked. It's a slow-moving green streak. There was another sound, this one more frightening to Bobby. Jake, what's that? I don't know. Where is it coming from? Outside the door of the jail. I'm confident that whatever it is, it can't get in. I made sure I locked down the jail. The sound was growing louder until she could finally hear what sounded like something banging on a steel door. Hey, tell me more about that friend of yours that played basketball, Jake said, distracting himself from what now was the boom on the other end of his jail door. Oh, Emily was great. She got a scholarship to play for Kansas. Did she take it? Jake asked. Yes, she works in television now. Bobby held the phone to her head tightly as she realized that there was something else in that dark sky besides an asteroid. In the distance was a large ship. Bobby blinked twice to make sure she was seeing it correctly. It was floating in the sky, making no sound. The people were outside were now being shot with laser beams of light. Bobby began to breathe heavy into the phone. Are you okay? I can tell something's wrong. I don't think we're going to be obliterated by an asteroid, Jake. Please believe me when I tell you I'm looking at a large spacecraft right now. Bobby's voice was panicked. I think you're right, Jake said. Oh my God, Jake, it's coming closer to my window. The object floated up to the skyscraper, and it hovered within 6 feet of where Bobby was standing. A large beam of light surveyed the room where she was in as she held the cell phone desperately up to her ear. What's happening now? Jake asked. I think they're investigating me. Those sounds outside my door, those aren't people trying to get in, Bobby. I don't think it's an asteroid that they're worried about. That seemed to have passed. The clock on the wall now said 7 a.m. The time that the governments all around the world said the asteroid was going to hit the Earth, pounding it into obliteration. Instead, what awaited them was something much more mundane and sinister at the same time. Invaders from another world. Oh God, they're here, Bobby. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being that voice on the other end of the phone when I needed it the most. Bobby held her phone up tighter now as she could push it inside of her mind. I would have come to visit you. I'd come now if I could, Jake. A flash of light burned intensely into the room, knocking Bobby over where she stood. The sound of the beam breaking the window caused Jake's ear to bleed. He hung onto the phone even with his door broke down, giving way to the most hideous beings he had ever set eyes on. They stood 7.5 feet tall, with heads of praying mantises and bodies of deformed humanoids. They came in closer and looked at Jake, who stood behind steel bars. One by one, all 5 of the creatures surveyed his enclosure and studied Jake with their large, dark, black eyes. It was as if they were reading every thought, feeling, and action, and all at once walked out and left him there, all alone. Jake stood watching as they left the jail. He dared not move for fear of what would happen next. He whispered into the phone, Bobby? Bobby, are you there? There was no sound on the other end of the phone. His friend was gone. Most likely dead now, as he wished he could be. Instead, Jake held the phone to his chest and realized he needed to be honest with Bobby one last time. Bobby, you may not hear me, but I lied. Yes, I lied. And yes, my wife's dead at my hands. But I murdered her in cold blood. She left me. She left me like everyone always does. You never left me, Bobby. You never left me. Thank you for not leaving me. He began to sob again when he looked for the keys to the jail. He would starve to death if he didn't get out of here. Jake felt for them in his pocket and held them out to unlock the cell doors. That's when he realized that whatever those creatures had done, they melted the keys. The aliens had looked into his soul and saw what he had done. They were now his judge, jury, and sentenced him to death for the hideous crime he had committed. The papers reported Sienna Bradford had been stabbed to death at least 12 times by her ex-husband, Jake Bradford. The grandmother that he had spoken of had died. That was his ex-wife's mother, Gertrude. He killed her for trying to stop him from murdering her daughter, hit her over the head with a hammer. Jake Bradford would starve in his own prison, sentenced to live out his last moments all alone. Jake sat in his cell as a single tear fell from his eye. Irony best served cold. The sounds of explosions continued outside of his cell as he closed his eyes, laughing to himself, waiting to die.